Hey guys, it's Rob Anderson with DollarMoves. I'd like to welcome you to another video. So today, real quickly, it's going to be Robyn Johnson is my special guest. I should be able to edit these, right? Like I tell you, Robyn Johnson is my special guest today, and we're going to be going over the steps to make your 2017 Q4 goals actually happen. So before we get going on this, I want to make sure that we have good sound and good picture. If you hear us and you see us, go ahead and hit thumbs up or put a comment in the chat and let us know. And speaking of thumbs up, if you hear something that makes you smile or you enjoy the content that you're getting, go ahead and make sure and hit thumbs up down below the video. That lets us know that we're giving you content that is helpful to you and that you're enjoying. So this show will be recorded, and you can find the replay easily on my Q4 page at dollarmoves.com/Q4 2017. And I'll put that over there as soon as it is live. So again, this is the topic today is steps to make your 2017 Q4 goals actually happen with Robyn Johnson. Now, real quick, I want to tell you about Robyn. Robyn Johnson is a respected Amazon selling authority and speaker at many of the big e-commerce events, including ASD and many others. She's the author of The Unlikely Entrepreneur, How I Transformed $100 into Seven-Figure Business. She has the popular podcast, Unstoppable Entrepreneur Show. She's the creator of the popular Unstoppable Amazon Academy, suite of Amazon courses that can help you take your Amazon business to the next level. You can learn more about the Academy by visiting dollarmoves.com/UAA. She also offers 3 different ways to help you succeed during the holiday selling season, including a free Q4 warm-up course, a Q4 bootcamp, and also her Q4 momentum coaching. So she's really got something for everyone there to learn more about, or to learn and help people during Q4. To learn more about all of the offerings, she's put on one easy page at dollarmoves.com/RJ Q4 2017. That's for Robyn Johnson, Q4 2017. So dollarmoves.com/RJ Q4 2017. And we'll be talking more about the offerings that she has later on, including how you might qualify for the Q4 bootcamp for free. But we'll get to that later. Robyn, I want to welcome you today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I always love getting to spend time with you. You're just like joy in a box.
I love it. You know, just like we were talking beforehand, I was just like, oh, it's so fun. I don't know why we don't do this more often, right? It's so fun. It's like hanging out. We're the exact same on camera as we are when we're hanging out, like at the amusement park or whatever. We just have a great time.
I know we keep coming back to that, but that was such a fun day.
It was super fun. But, you know, it's been a while since I've actually got to talk to you, like when we turned the camera on here. And, I mean, I haven't even talked to you since you got to go and meet one of your mentors, Dave Ramsey, and even, like, eat dinner at his house. Like, what was that all about?
It was so cool. So I got to go to the Entre Leadership event, and right here, I got some pictures right here, and I got to go to Dave Ramsey's house. I got to go to the studio. I got to do all these fun things, and I even got a chance to like hang out with some other people at Ecom Chicago. But you know what was crazy is that I was driving. You know, what do you do the day after you go to Dave Ramsey's house? And for me, I was like, I want to hang out with my bookkeeper.
Yeah,
so
right.
I went, we were traveling from Nashville to Memphis, and we were driving, and then I was taking notes, and we were like brainstorming all these cool things that we could do for our clients. And then all of a sudden I noticed we were stopping, and my shoulders were really tight, and this guy had hit us from behind. So one of the things, you know, like at first, like, you know, I was like, my shoulders were tight, and I like, and you know, I know that and I guess my bookkeeper, Cindy, she never has been in a car accident ever.
Oh,
and,
lucky.
Yeah, and I know. I was like, well, I'm glad it was this one. And so we pulled off, and you know, the guy came and checked on us, and you know, I was thinking, I was like, how much of an idiot do you have to be driving? We were driving 75 miles an hour in a straight line, and he came up and hit us from behind, right? And I was like, what were you doing? Like, what was so important that you were not looking at where you were going? I don't know if your friend was talking, and we were waiting for the police to get there, right? And I was like, you know, like I'm getting like, you know, red mad because I'm like, he could have spun us into the ditch.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were going 75 when you got hit. I thought you were at a stoplight or something like that. I had no idea. Yeah, that could have been crazy bad.
It was really scary. And, it could have, I mean, like, I was like, as much as I love hanging out with the people in Memphis and going to Ecom Chicago, I don't want that to be like the last thing. Like, tell my kids, like, sorry, she's not coming home.
Yeah, right.
Like it was, so, but like, as I was thinking about how angry I was about, like, how could he not pay attention? I started to think about, like, how often am I not paying attention? Not that I'm, texting when I'm driving or anything, but like, how often am I so caught up in like what is happening right now, whatever is getting my attention right now. And I'm so focused right here.
Right.
And I don't look out the windshield and ahead of me. And I think that that's, especially during Q4, it's so easy to be like, oh, there's so many things that are happening right now. And there's so many distractions. There's so many things that seem incredibly urgent. But if you don't take care of what is important and keep your eye on the prize, then it's really easy to, I mean, really, you could go off the road. And it happens to a couple sellers every year where they thought they were going to have this great year and then they just completely flame out. It's not because they're not good sellers. It's because they got focused on the urgent and not the important,
Right. Wow. So that's pretty amazing. I'm sure you weren't thinking that as soon as you got hit, but that is a huge, like that. But that story
I had a little time to massage that thought, but
yeah, but that's so true to think about in life. Like if you don't look at the important, like, and you can get stuck doing all the busy stuff if you're not prepared. Like it's just so true what you were saying. That's crazy. Was that on the way after Dave Ramsey, or was that?
Yeah, so I had been at their house. We got to do this thing with like famous country singers, writers, people that I don't listen to country, so I did not. It was kind of lost on me, but I appreciated the effort. But like, we were driving from Nashville to Memphis because I have, quite a few customers in Memphis, and so we did like a one-day event in Memphis. And so we were driving from there to visit my friend Carla, and so we went down there, and I was on that way that we got in the accident, and so. I mean, it was crazy. I mean,
well, I'm so glad that everything was okay, especially how, I mean, like I said, when you were telling me about that, I thought you were like at a stoplight or something. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, and like he like kind of swerved to hit us. It was a little crazy, but it was great. And then I got to go to Ecom Chicago, where I got to share, about this kind of the same topic, like how do you actually hit your goals? Because I think that a lot of people, as we so in our Momentum group coaching program, people send us their goals every week, and we had one client that was like, well, I have every week. It was like I didn't hit my goal, and so we had a really good conversation about how we have to, like we have to recalibrate our goals and make them, so that they should, a good goal or a good, thing that you're aiming for should call you like powerfully into action. So it should give you like inspiration to move into new things, not just to be like a reminder of how you failed or, what you like a burden of what you should do, especially for my Catholic brothers and sisters, we're really good at laying on the guilt.
Don't need to add it on by yourself, right?
Yeah. Somebody's like, sometimes you can should all over yourself.
Right.
Like don't shit on yourself.
You don't want to be covered in shoulds.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So, I did get to do the, I was just thinking as you were talking, I said the bio. Was there anything that I missed in that? I know you are multifaceted and do so much stuff. Was there anything that you wanted to add to that maybe I didn't hit or anything like that? I know you got your start. I don't know if everyone knows you. You're very popular to the channel here, so they should. But for anyone new, why don't you give a quick like how you came to be a seller, and then we can just go right into the to what you're teaching.
Because, that's actually why I was at the Dave Ramsey thing, is I wanted to thank him in person. And so I actually got that chance. And so I'll just tell you what I told him. So, well, the first time they did the photo line and I was going to try to say hi, and I was just like, huh. That's all I could get out. And me, I'm not at a loss for words right. But, and, I don't agree with everything he teaches or everything he says, but it was we were so far beyond our financial breaking point. I was a youth minister. I had a son who has some chronic health issues, and we just couldn't make it anymore. When the car would make a noise or the air conditioner would creak, I just wanted to pull my head underneath the covers and just hide. Right. And I just wondered if we were always going to be terrified and scared about money. I felt really hopeless. You know, like what was going to change? You work for a church. It's not like you can switch companies. I mean,
Right.
you you're kind of locked in.
Just a different flavor.
I know there's no, and so I, yeah, we started doing the Financial Peace University. We started getting our baby steps, and then he was telling on CD6. He talks about this lady who was buying strollers at garage sales and reselling them on Craigslist or something along those lines. And I was like, I could do that. And so I took $100 out of our emergency fund. I could still remember the 520s in my hand. And we started going from garage sale to garage sale to garage sale, selling eBay and then Amazon and our own website. We built it to 7 figures in a few short years. And you might think that it would be easy then, but business is still hard. There's still days that I cry. There's still days that I'm stressed out. I asked my mentor one day, I was like, because I was having a bad day. And when girls have the bad day and we don't just do the cry, but we do the ugly cry. And I was like,
Right.
when will I stop being so scared?
Right.
She laughed at me and I was like, it's not nice. And she said, like, you'll never stop being afraid. I mean, it's so, when you have a business, it's always scary because you're always pushing the limits. You're always trying new things. There's always competition. There's always all these things going on. But know that if you ever were to wipe out, if you ever were to fail, you never are starting over. I mean, you always have new skills and new things that you've kind of started as a baseline. And so, no matter where you are in your e-commerce journey, you might have setbacks, but you never start over. I mean, you're always one step closer. If you just, like my daughter was saying something, she's like, oh, I failed to do this. And I was like, no, you didn't fail. Failing is just that you stop trying, not making your goal isn't failing at your goal. It just means
you figured out how to not do it the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I've done like all of the dumb decisions and, and that's part of the process. So if you feel like, what's wrong with me that I keep making these crazy decisions, I think that it's called being human.
Right. And I think it's so huge that you share that vulnerability that, you are always, if you're pushing the limits, you're always going to feel a little fear. It's just once you become an entrepreneur for a while, it becomes more of excitement rather than like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? So you're always feeling a little something if you're pushing yourself. So
one of my favorite things to say is failure is like fertilizer. It stinks, but you need it to grow.
Yeah, truth. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that is so cool. Yeah. And I didn't realize actually when you were talking about that story, that was a Dave Ramsey story that taught you about buying and selling. I didn't realize that was, I knew that was your part of the story, the strollers, but I didn't know it was Dave Ramsey was where you actually like he's all the way the first chink in your, in your armor of entrepreneurialism. Like, that's so cool. Like, I had no idea. So that makes it way huge. And I get the like fangirling out or fanboying out on someone who's like helped you or whatever, but that's huge when you get to that first person. You're like, whoa, like you helped me out of the depths of despair. Like, you don't get it. No, you're an angel, Like,
well, that's what I told him. And I was like, by the way, I have this podcast that's been listened to and I have like all these clients and I wanted to let you know that I wouldn't be able to impact any of them if you hadn't first impacted me. So, so I was able to actually thank him in person, which I thought was pretty dang cool because, I never thought I would ever meet him, let alone get a chance to thank him,
Right. That's huge. And I mean, it's so amazing to have that happen. So cool. So cool. I mean, it must have been a blessing for him too. I know we're going to get right into this. I know that's the thing. We start talking. It's just like we're hanging out, but it must have really touched him too, to be able to know like all the stuff he's putting out there. It's helping. It's putting these like lights of hope and, and awesomeness out in the world. And so for you to come back and be like, yeah, I was in this terrible spot. My last, 5 $20 bills are in my hand and it could be the thing that saves me, or I'm going to go try this thing that's like, I hope it works. And now here I am. So that's huge. That's such a neat story. Thank you so much for sharing. So today, again, you're going to be talking about the steps to make your 2017 Q4 goals actually happen. I want to make sure everybody has a pen and paper, something to take notes with, because Robyn's going to be going through all this great information here. And yeah, I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into it.
Okay. So, I think when people get into Q4 goals, they kind of treat it like the magic genie or like Tinkerbell has come down, like there is no fairy godmother. It's not like, so if I had $1 for every person who's like, my goal is to sell $1 million. My
Right.
goal is to send, to make 10 grand. I know that those nice big round numbers are good, but we want to focus on like the idea that you want to have is how much money do you need your business to yield in order to give you the life that you want? Having your numbers based in reality is going to make it feel less like a pipe dream and keep you more motivated, because you're going to be more motivated if you know you need $5,500 to be able to leave your job and afford insurance and keep your daughter in piano lessons, then you are going to be like to get 10,000 one day someday when my life turns out.
Right.
So knowing how much you like, because you like to travel, and I know Trinity's getting older, and so you want to, I'm sure, like do some cool traveling with her. Your business is very much a lifestyle business, right?
Right.
And so like knowing how much that's going to cost, and so what do I need to yield this, and I'm going to recommend that you just set your goals for how much am I going to net for December, and if you play really hard for that, then November will kind of take care of itself, right?
Right.
Because you're gonna have to be scaling up to work for that. But we want to make sure that we're kind of breaking it into 3 steps. And those, first we want to focus on strategic sourcing, knowing your numbers, and then we're going to expand. And I know that that seems pretty, easy, but a lot of times people focus on expanding first. We need to get your sourcing to the level where it's strategic and not emotional. So where we want to get to is that we're not like just, when you're really hungry, you're just filling your face with anything you can get.
Right. Right.
At least that's what, but you want to be able to say, okay, oh, I need to have this salad first. So I need to get really efficient in sourcing. So, and that will allow you to have the time in order to invest in things like maybe other sourcing methods like wholesale or private label or online arbitrage, all these other things. But you have to start by making sure you're efficient at what you're doing now. Then we want to make sure we know our numbers. So how much do we actually need in order to hit that? So, when we're looking at those things, when we're looking at sourcing better, we want to look at replens are really, really important for Q4. Because if you need to spend, $1,600 every week in order to make your profit goal, then if you start with replens, then you're not starting at 0 every week. So that's going to make a huge difference in how you're going to be able to scale up. So we also want you to kind of start to develop and know your niche so you can start bringing things to market. So you're not as reliant. At the beginning, you're going to rely really heavily on those numbers, sales rank, keep a charts and things like that.
Mhm.
After a while, you should be able to kind of bring in some of the art that goes with the science.
What do you recommend for replens? Like what percentage? Do you have a percentage that you recommend people, or
100.
as many as you can get? Yeah. Right.
Aim for 100.
Right. And over and over.
Yeah. Well, because so replens, they make you think strategically. So when we first started getting a couple replens, then I started doing RA a little differently, because when I knew that I already had some things that I could go and I could get at 40% ROI, and then something that I would then, or if I knew something, I had something that I knew would sell at like 80% ROI. And then I saw something in the store for 50% ROI, even if that had met my criteria, I put it down because I knew I had something better. Right.
Right.
So
Right.
it helps you set those guidelines. And replens, actually, they have you buying less on speculation. So when you can, replens, you're always going to have to keep looking for new ones in order to expand. And, trends crash, right? So
Right.
you
Right.
can't sell the same, you're always going to either, I give a lot of examples of things that we've used as replens in the past. Like, we've done lawn flamingos and barf bags and all these other things. And because, those markets rise and fall. And so sometimes you're going to keep them in your arsenal in case they come back. But we have to always be looking forward to, what if that doesn't happen, or we get cut off on a wholesale supplier, or a store says, we're not going to honor those 20% coupons that you've been using to make things profitable. We want to kind of self-insure by having more in replens than you do in capital to spend. So you always have leftovers.
Okay, fair enough. Now, do you and then during Q4 though, I know that you're going to be wanting to prepare, but during Q4, you're adding in some of the other stuff as well. So that was why I had that question, because I know there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're not going to know once you go out there, because it's just like Q4, here we go. You know what I mean? On top of whatever your regular replens are and stuff like that. So
yeah, so like if your regular replens are enough to sustain you right here, you're going to RA and OA, your Q4 stuff, that's going to fill in this gap here at the top.
Right,
in order to hit the spend goal. So, you know, you should aim for 100% replens, but that's, I mean, you're always going to be trying new things. So you're never going to hit it. It's kind of like being a Christian. You can try to be a Christian as well as Christian as you want, but you're always going to fail and fall short. You just, it's an aspiration more than it is a goal, I guess.
Right, right.
So the other thing I think is really important is having inventory rules. There's a reason that like Mark Zuckerberg wears like the same shirt all the time. And he says he was like one less decision for him to make. So when you're tired, have you ever gone to like, you know, RA, like this would happen to me. And like, I have a really rocking day, and near the end of the day, I'd make a couple buys. And the next morning I was like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Why did
high.
Yeah, you were high,
Yeah.
or you're like, you know, your mind's kind of groggy. You're like, that'll be fine. You know, like I almost are like tired drunk, where you're like, this is gonna sell. And so if you have
I think we've all been there. I'm just laughing because I've looked at like having the list, my daughter bring up the receipt and go, what am I supposed to price this at? And I look at it and go, what was I thinking?
Yeah, we were like, no, there must have been another listing. There must have been another listing. No, there wasn't another listing.
No.
Well, but it happens because we're tired. And so when we're tired, we don't make really great decisions. And when we're more emotional, we don't make really great decisions. I have a friend that's a clinical psychologist, and she says when your emotions are really high so if something really great happened to you or something really bad happened to you, your IQ drops 15 points.
Wow. I believe it.
Yeah. And that, you know, I was like, oh, that explains a lot of things that I see happening around January, where people are like, I'm rich.
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
You know, but like with the inventory rules, if you have set things where you're like, you know, I don't buy more, you know, I don't want my inventory to be more than like 60% one brand or 50% one category. I don't want it to be, you know, I only buy things with at least $5 profit and at least this much ROI. Now, the rules are made to be broken. So, you know, we have things that don't meet our inventory rule that we still have bought, but we don't count them towards our weekly goals. So we kind of, you know, so like we can still buy them because sometimes things fall outside the rules, and there's other reasons why it works, even though it didn't work in your initial rules. But we don't count it, so we don't start cheating to lower our standards, because that's what I see a lot of people do in Q4.
Right.
Is they want to increase their volume, and so they lower their ROI. And they lower how much profit they'll take, and then they're increasing their expenses. And so even though they quadrupled their revenue, the amount that they took home actually went down.
Right. And that's the important part.
Yeah.
Not that big number that everyone shares, but that number that hits the bank. So,
because the only thing that big number is for is to brag in a Facebook group.
Right.
I mean, there are way better ways to be cool. I mean,
yeah. I know. That's always amazed me about like the online selling community. It's like bragging about these huge, you know, the big gross sales, and it's like, yeah, but you could do $1 million in sales and have $1,001 in expenses. You know what I mean? And you're no good.
Yeah. You know, people, you know, like, and you know, people get all upset when you ask, like, well, how much profit was that? Well, I mean, and I totally understand not wanting to share that because it's very personal information.
Right.
But I mean, those gross sales numbers don't really tell us anything. So they just tell us how much access to capital somebody had. Mm-hmm. You know, they tell us, you know, if somebody's good at logistics, but they don't really tell us anything else, you know? So, you know, if you look at somebody else's screenshot and you're like, wow, what's wrong with me? That 24-year-old or that 70-year-old is totally outselling me. Before you start beating yourself down, you know, you don't know if this is the 8th business that they've owned, if they had access to $80,000 in capital. We don't know what their ROIs are. We don't know if they're profitable. So, you know, the best way to be dissatisfied in life is to spend it focusing on comparing yourselves to others.
Right.
You know, so, you know, just look at what your goals are, and is that your business helping getting you to what you need.
Right. And what's going to help is figuring out these goals. How do you figure, and I know this is probably something that you go through, very specifically, but how do you start to figure those goals? Just that starting point, like you said, to figure out your net for what I'm going to do by the end of Q4. How do you set that number? Like how would you do that? Do you just look at how much I need per month up to that point or something like that, and then just kind of go from there?
Yeah, so what I would do, you need to add up your personal expenses. So, the mortgage, the food, piano lessons, whatever, right? Then
Mhm.
we're going to do the same thing for your business. And so we're going to look at, if you have scan power inventory lab, if your seller fees, if you have tactical arbitrage, we're going to add all of those up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, that's how much our expenses are, right?
Mhm.
And so if we say, well, I need an extra like $2,000 on top of that, then we're going to add that amount. So we're going to add our expenses plus our profit goal. And then that's going to give us kind of where we're going to be focused on for what we want is our calculation. So we actually help build a calculator to help you with these numbers because it's kind of hard. So I'm going to show you just this real quick. So right here is it this gross sales target. If you go to bestfromthenest /calc and then you enter, so your profit goal, if I want to have $20,000 at the end net and I have $3,000 in expenses, then we're going to put it in that calculator. And if you put it in the calculator, you're going to put in your average ROI. And if you don't know your average ROI, then go by what you're what you aim for. And if you reprice really heavily, lower it. If you're really analytical and you want to find your actual number, you go for it, but not required. But you can see if you put it in the calculator, basically, and you end up having to have $103,000 in gross sales. Now, some of you are now breathing heavily and having a panic attack because how am I going to get that amount of sales? So the first thing we need to look at is that in that calculator, so we're going to round up. If you haven't read 10X by Grant Cardone, one of the things that he says is when businesses, a lot of times they fail not because the business owner isn't good or that they wouldn't have a good idea, but it's that they underestimated how much time or money it was going to take. So if you need $5,000 to quit your job in January, then we want to aim for maybe, he would say 50,000, but I know that would give me a heart attack. So let's say 8, right? And we're going to do all of the actions that would get you to 8. And this way, if you fall a little short, we're still above that 5 or we're still at that 5, right?
Right.
So, because there's always going to be things outside of our control. Listings will be suppressed. Shipments are going to get delayed. Somebody's going to come in and tank the pricing. And once we build our goals around that, it gives us some leverage on that. Now, on that 100, and so let's say we round up to 120,000, then we would need about $50,000 in our cost in inventory at 50% ROI.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you needed to have spent $50,000 in inventory, right? So then we're going to look at, but we want to look at $120,000 in sales. The one thing that you have to have in order to have $120,000 in sales is you have to have at least $120,000 worth of inventory.
Right, right.
But we want to give yourself a little bit more. So if you know right now, so you can find this out. If this is overwhelming for you, this section, then just aim for just kind of round up a little bit more to the next, digit. But if you know that you have $20,000 in sales right now and you have $40,000 in inventory, then it's kind of like a 1 to 2 ratio, right? So you sell about half of what's in your inventory, right? Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, if you sold, $1,000 this month and you had $4,000 in inventory, that would, people will say, well, what's a good number? There is no good number. If you're a bookseller, that number is going to be closer to that 1 to 4. If
Right.
you are doing like quick flips, then we expect it to be closer to your gross sales, right? So kind of look at what you're doing now, and then you're going to say, okay, this is how. So if I know I needed 120,000 in inventory, and right now I'm selling about half my inventory, let's just say that I'm going to need $250,000 in inventory. But we're going to take that number down for the people, because people who are doing $250,000, you guys can add zeros. Let's say for the people who get there and they say, okay, well, I need $25,000 in inventory. So let's do that, because I think that's a little bit more reachable for some people. So if I need $25,000 in inventory, and right now I have 10 in inventory, right? then I need to raise it up. So we're going to do an inventory plan where each week we replace what we sold, and then we're going to add like $2,000. So we're going to stair step our way up.
Okay.
So you talked about the 4 ways that we have different things for Q4. For those who are in our Q4 boot camp, we have a whole playbook that is set or centered around just getting these numbers for you. There's worksheets, and in the works, there's worksheets and videos that will walk you through the whole process. If this is too complicated, I'm okay with you guessing on numbers, because I'd rather have you have a number than no number.
Right. No, I think that's really important, and that's one of the cool things about you is that the people that I recommend all do this and they talk about it as a business, but you really get down to the numbers. You really talk of it in a way that is business like. You know what I mean? You know the difference?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people they just talk about sourcing, and they just talk about growing your numbers, and I feel like that puts a lot of pressure on people to grow, and sometimes it puts a pressure on them to grow in an unhealthy way.
Right, I can see that.
Because they're like, oh, I got to keep up. I got to be one of the cool kids. Well, or worse, I am one of the cool kids, and now what are people going to think if I'm not growing my sales? And so, it's about doing that over time.
Yeah, that's super smart. I hope you guys are writing notes. This is awesome information that you are sharing. It's always great information. And I know that people, they got to be listening to this. Like you said, someone might be going, oh my goodness, what is she talking about? Some of this stuff. But, I'm sure that they can see the value, and your numbers, what is important. And that's why you help people do this stuff. You've helped people year after year. I've seen it to where you help them to grow their businesses. And I love the fact that it's like, let's make our goal here and then kind of work it backwards. You know what I mean? And then make it bite-sized chunks, right? Instead of like trying to eat the whole elephant, eat it one at a time, right? So I think that's super cool. I would like you to go ahead and talk about what you have to offer here, because for those people who are going, yeah, this is the information that I really need to know about. This is the person that I need to learn from. I'd like you to just go ahead and go over the different courses and offerings that you do have. And I want to let you guys know that she has put all of the information in one spot at dollarmoves.com/RJ Q4 2017. But why don't you go ahead and talk about the free Q4 warm-up course, Q4 bootcamp, and your Q4 momentum coaching, if you would.
Yeah, so in the free Q4 warm-up, there's emails that are going to come to you that are going to walk you through certain pieces of this, right? And it's going to help you get ready to kind of build up these goals. So if you haven't already, it's completely free, but the idea behind it is that we want you to be ready and prepared for Q4, because it's about more than just gross sales. It's about bringing home that money to your family. Right. And so it's about setting those expectations, knowing what is important. And so we talk about some of the things like, how do you scale up? How do you, what are the keys to doing that? What are the keys to, being ready and setting a goal for Q4? How can I prepare my family for Q4? All of these things are really, really important, but we can kind of overstep them sometimes because we're so focused on sales. So we go through a lot of that. And then in the Q4 bootcamp, it's every week, it's a video, and we've been doing this for over, I think 2 months now, a month or two. And you also have all the previous years. So they're, weekly videos, and they're all pretty much 20 minutes or less. And they're because I know you're busy in Q4. So like this last week we did lead goals versus action. So we talked about how do you take these goals and make them so tiny that they, it's easy for you to check off, and how do we put them in our calendar? So we talked about how to time block. So how do we say, okay, so because there's certain things in your calendar that need to go first. So we talked about all of those things, right? And I've also talked about, how to do the replens, how to do, how do we do shipping? We've talked about we talked about wholesale and placing wholesale orders. So there's a ton of videos, and you get access to our regular Unstoppable Academy Facebook group. So you can ask as many questions as you want during Q4. We want to make sure that you're completely supported. And I thought about making a separate Facebook group, but I decided the last thing the world needs is another Amazon Facebook group.
Well, I'll tell you that your Facebook group is so supportive and everybody's in there helping each other. Yeah, that's one of the, I mean, that's huge. That I think it's even better that you've brought it all together. So you kind of have all the people who are already there supporting each other, and then it's bringing in new people into the family and being like, here you go, check out what you got here, you know? So I think that's super cool.
Well, and it's really nice because there's a lot of sellers of a lot of different, like we've got people who are just getting started, but but we've got people that are really, really advanced.
Right.
And so, you know, we've got a lot of people that you can ask questions from. But, you know, and then me and my husband and our team, we're in there all the time trying to make sure things get answered. So it's a way for you to have access. Like, you know, I wish I could ask Robyn a question. Well, that Facebook group is the way to ask the question.
Right.
And then if you even wanted to videotape yourself and, you know, do a video question, I'm totally down with that. We
Cool.
want you to get access to the help that you need. That's why I do this, is because I want to help people, you know.
Right.
You know, so whatever we can do to support you, we want to do that. So we just have to be careful because we have to make sure that, you know, we are, you know, are unfairly giving one person more access than the other. But, you know, the Facebook group allows us to really, like, you might have a question that a lot of people have been trying to figure out how to ask, but maybe they didn't even know how to phrase it correctly. You know, so the Facebook group's a great place for that. And then you also have access in the Q4 thing. I think this is the thing that people are really overlooking, and we kind of slid it in there just for people who are paying attention, is you get access to our Wholesale 3.0 class.
Right.
Which, I mean, people sell wholesale courses for $2,000, and, you know, you get this is included because I know a lot of people are planning on moving into wholesale into January. This is a great way to get the wholesale piece that you've been looking at. You can review it. You can start getting going in mid-December, so that you can be ready come January, and you can kind of, because there's a couple of really great shows in January that you want to be ready to attend. You know, there's Fancy Food Show in San Francisco, which is a great show because all you do is eat for like 3 days. It's like my dream world. I just eat and talk, you know, for like 3 days.
The best.
And then it's in San Francisco, so I get to go to the Walt Disney Family Museum, which is awesome.
I've never been there. I have to try that one out.
And then in our Q4 momentum, that's basically
real quick before we get too far on that, you were talking about Wholesale 3.0. Now that's your brand new course that you, it's the most updated wholesale course that you have. And that one sells on its own normally, right? And you've just added this in, like, it's just an extra thing.
Yeah, that normally sells on its own. I think for actually more than that. I think I want to say it's more than the cost of the boot camp. I have to double check.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then, you know, the only other way to get it really is to buy the academy, which is, you know, it's fairly low price considering all of the things that you get. But, you know, this is probably the least expensive way to get the wholesale course.
Right.
And you have access to the Facebook group for a couple months. So I think we really designed it to be like a scream and deal.
Right, for sure. How long are they able to get to that wholesale course? Is it from here on out, or is it just during the Q4 time?
No, from here on out.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. So think of that if you're interested in getting into wholesale as well. Like, on top of having all this other great information and help for Q4, I mean, that's a no-brainer. Because when I read it, when I was typing that stuff down too, I was like, that's in here, like that's really good. So
it's a really good deal, and it's because I think that there's so many people that are, you know, like I want to make sure everybody has the tools that they need, but you know, like, it's easy to say, well, should I spend my money on this thing that's going to be goal setting? That sounds boring. Or sourcing. Trying to give you both because, you know, the nice thing about the goal setting is if you take it and you implement it, then you're going to have so much more money to source with. We have clients that have in like 3 to 4 months gone from $5,000 to over $50,000 a month. And people who followed our wholesale thing, that they've gone into 6 figures a month in wholesale in less than 6 months.
Wow.
So, I mean, I know this is, you know, people were like, well, what do you do in wholesale? Like, I really do what I teach. The
Mhm.
only thing that's not in the wholesale thing is we're doing a lot of consulting for brands now where we're selling a consignment. That's the only thing that's not in the wholesale, but we recommend that you start with straight wholesale first before you jump to that model. But it's, you know, if you want to come ride with us on that model after you've had a chance to start some regular wholesale, we've got some stuff coming up for that too.
Right. And so really you could take all this information that you're learning right now in the Q4 boot camp and build up your business to where when you jump into January or, you know, like you said, into towards the end of December, start getting that wholesale set up with the extra capital that you've made during all of this Q4. So yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, and so I mean, it'll really, I mean, it really is. Yeah, it's about kind of snowballing, and
Right.
if you can really build right now during Q4, then it's going to give you a base that you're going to be able to do what you really want. If you feel like you've been stifled or you've been stuck or you're just kind of overwhelmed and you haven't been able to get the traction you want, then this is really, you know, this is what we would recommend if you were doing one-on-one coaching is if you know we would be walking you through these goal steps, we're having you work through those, and then implementing those things in your sourcing.
Right. Now, I do want to tell you guys, if you're interested in looking at any of these, we have one more to talk about, but you can go to dollarmoves.com/RJQ4 2017, and that will show all of the free course, the boot camp, and the momentum. But I don't know if you want to talk about it after momentum or before, but how they might be able to get boot camp for free. I'll let you
Oh,
decide
let's
on
do
that
that
one.
now because
Okay.
otherwise, yeah. So if you are a active, retired, or disabled military or your spouse, or you are a nurse, clergy, EMT, or a teacher, and then you get the boot camp for free. It's our way. Now, the teachers are always questions. We're saying if you're a teacher in a school because it's a service. So this is basically our service scholarship. So all the people that serve our community so generously all year, this is our way of saying thank you. Because without you, our society just doesn't work. Without police, fire, EMT, nurses, teachers, clergy, and military, we don't have the same neighborhoods. We don't have the same country. So it's our little tiny way of saying thank you for all the service that you guys provide.
Yeah, that is awesome. And you do that every year. So I think that's super cool. Are you still there?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, cool.
yeah,
You got quiet. I was just saying, you wanted more? It's really, really good. No,
yeah. No,
no, I
but
mean,
yeah,
it really is cool that you
yeah.
do that. I think that's very special. And as far as I know, you're the only one that does something like that. So I think it's very cool.
It's, you know, it's I think that it's important for us to say thank you, but you know, it's, I think more importantly than that, it's, you know, this is a really great time for people who have been trying to who don't make a lot because of what they do is a place of service, for them to be able to make more, so that they can have the lives for their families that you guys want. And nobody started their business because they wanted to sit in Walmart and source, and
Right.
people are like, man, I really wish I could spend my evenings packing boxes instead of watching TV.
Pretty fun.
Yeah. We all started our businesses because we wanted, you know, we wanted something different for our life. You know, we wanted to give our kids access to something. We wanted to have some security that we didn't have, or we wanted to get rid of a boss, whatever it was for you. We want to make sure that the steps that you're taking in your business are actually getting you there. And if not, we need to adjust and recalibrate so that they can, because otherwise, what's the point?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I think that's so cool that you do that. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in the comments section as well, so that people do know that. But the fact that you give a scholarship, I mean, this is something that people are buying every day, but you're giving a scholarship. So super cool. But yeah, so go ahead. Let's go ahead and talk about momentum. I'm sorry that I cut you off a couple of times there, but there are just some good juicy things I wanted you to talk about.
I'm bad about skipping over things. So momentum is really our way of making coaching affordable because, especially as you're getting started, you want to make sure that most of your money is going towards inventory. So in our momentum group coaching program, you have access to, during Q4, it's a weekly call that you as a group call that everybody has access to. And then you get one 20-minute call and you can do it with me or Nate or, and you can have that 20-minute call where we can talk about things specific to your business that maybe you don't want other people to know. If you're having so you have a particular supplier, a particular store that you'd like to have us to talk to about that. But what we do, you have access to, basically you have one-on-one time and group time. And then every week you have access to this form. We call it the PPP, the Plans, Progress, and Problems form, where you kind of tell us, did you hit your goals? What are your goals for next week? And it gives you that accountability. And, I would, most of the time, I don't reply to all of them, but I do reply to a good chunk of them saying, okay, like I looked at your goal. Can you make this a little bit more specific? Or I saw that this is something you're stuck on. I made a video for you.
Oh, awesome.
So, we really try to do that. In those weekly calls, we go through very applicable things. So this last week or Wednesday, what we talked about was how do you launch a product, your bundle? And what are the 7 steps that, because of the new changes that Amazon has made over the last 6 months, our process has changed significantly from what it was, last year. So we went through those 7 steps of, how we're getting those products that initial traction without doing these giant giveaways, which are starting to lose their ability to really make the difference that they used to.
Huh, that's huge. So you're showing them exactly how you're kind of getting your teeth into Amazon's catalog without having to give away a bunch of free stuff. That's very interesting.
And it's the same process that we do. I mean, we're literally doing it with 3 brands right now this week, where we're relaunching existing products for them, and we do it all the time. And so we're and on top of that, when you're in momentum, you get usually a fairly big discount if we do any live events, and we will have several live events in Q4 or in Q1 that we're going to start announcing in the next couple of weeks, so you'd have access to those discounts. So
That's awesome. And you guys
yeah.
just did your first event this year.
Yeah, so we've been doing the so we've been doing the wholesale accelerators, so which are
Mhm.
one-day events where, like, right before the trade show, we get
Oh, that's
together
right.
and
That's
we
right.
go through everything. And then, we actually started a certification program for people who are really, like, they want to work and consult with brands, where we go through, I mean, I even gave copies of my proposals and,
Oh, wow.
yeah, like the contracts that we have for consignment, because right now we have a lot of companies that are in wholesale that we're not paying for inventory until it sells. So we're on a consignment deal with them where they send us the inventory and then we give them their percentage cut of those sales after we get our disbursement.
Nice.
So, that really kind of has helped us be able to grow in a healthier way for us. And the other thing we do is some straight consulting. So we go over intellectual property, brand registry, creating listings. And so actually we actually certify people, and at the end of the certification they had to be able to create a listing with a flat file and do sponsored ads, and people learned a ton. When we did a pre-test and a post-test, people
Mhm.
were coming in at, like, I think the pre-tests were like 50% on average, but everybody passed with over an 80 before the thing was over.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, who would you recommend? Actually, I see you still have a ton. Do you have, they also get the Q4 boot camp. Did you talk about all that stuff as well?
Oh, yeah. So if you're in momentum, then you get access to the boot camp and everything and you get the entire access to the entire academy. So that means you get access to everything from the coolest thing that I think that people don't see in our academy is the scaling retail arbitrage. In that scaling retail arbitrage course, what we teach you to do is exactly what I did. So I was able to spend $50,000 in RA in a day. We build up these master lists of stores, and then and by doing that, we don't have to scan in the stores as much. We're spending a very small time scanning in the stores. Everything else is done before we arrive. And so we get in, we get out, we know exactly how many we're going to buy. So we're not making those foggy on the spot decisions, but we're actually be able to make them more strategically. We
Right.
really that I think that is but most people won't do it. So that's why people are like, why would you give that secret? Because it's a lot of work and it's not fun or sexy. And so I know most people won't do it.
But again, that's that whole business minded way, like getting the work done before you get out there to, to get out in the middle and get all crazy and stuff. So, again, you guys, if you want to learn more about any of this, you can figure out all of the different nuances of each program. If you go to dollarmoves.com/RJQ4 2017, that's dollarmoves.com/RJQ4 2017. There's also links over at dollarmoves.com/Q4 2017. And before we get right back into this, who would you say are the right people? Like, do you have a right customer for each type, for, you know what I mean? Do you have something like that, or is it kind of everyone, wherever they feel like they fit in? Or
so if you just want to kind of get you're still not sure about me, I get that. I'm a lot. Then I would start with a free Q4, so you can kind of get some things going. Or, if you're just getting started, then, you might want to stick with the free Q4. Make sure you're spending as much as you can on inventory. If you already feel like you're starting to get some momentum, but you're looking to accelerate that growth, then that would be the boot camp. And if you are a seasoned seller, or you're looking at, you are somebody who's really disciplined, you're ready, you don't need hand holding, but you do want to be able to check in and say, am I going in the right direction? Because I'm going to step on this gas really, really hard, and I want to make sure I'm not going to go into a wall. That's who we recommend for our momentum.
Okay, that's awesome. So that gives you guys an idea, because again, there's so much great information here, and I appreciate everything that you do. And thanks again for doing the scholarship thing. I mean, that's so huge, because I could just imagine you probably made it thinking like, I wish I would have been something like that for me when I was starting out. How huge would that have been to have the expertise and the knowledge to help me succeed and kind of like, pour rocket fuel onto my business and get me rocking and rolling in Q4. So, my hat's off to you. That's super, super cool. Now, did you want to go ahead and really quickly just go over what you've already talked about and then go to the next step?
Yeah. So I'm going to do it in a more simple way, because so when we're looking at Q4, I want you to know how much you need your business to yield you at the end of the year, and how much your expenses are. And even in the free Q4 bootcamp, we go over how to find those expenses for you, right? Cool. So you're going to know how much your expenses are, and you're going to know how much you need. Then we're going to put that into the calculator, and we're going to see how much do you need to gross. And so that's that however much you need to gross, we need to have, at the minimum, you need to aim to have that much inventory. And then what we're going to do, if you want to take the next step, you're going to kind of look at your ratio, and you're going to figure out how much inventory you need in total. But even if you don't do the ratio, you just round up. So basically, you want to find out how much inventory do we need to sell in order to profit the amount that you need to profit. Then we're going to look at where you are today and where you need to be, and then we're going to divide. So if you feel like you can stair step it, then I want you to divide the difference. So let's say you have, 25,000 is what you need in inventory to hit your goal, and you have 5,000 now. Then we're going to take 25 minus 5, because we already have that 5 as a base. Mm-hmm. And then divide that by the number of weeks between now and, maybe Black Friday, or maybe not Black Friday, but maybe like December 15th at this point, right?
Right.
And then you're going to figure out how much inventory do we need to send each week. So each week we're going to replace what we sold plus that little bit. If you know that you're waiting on a cash infusion, so your rich uncle Rob left you money and you're going to get it in 2 weeks, then you might say, well, I'm going to increase 1,000, and then I'm going to try to do 15,000. But we have to make sure they're not pie in the sky. So if you're looking at raising out the amount of inventory that you have by a lot, then we want to think about what actions do you need to take in order to make sure that you could buy that much inventory. So would you need to hire people to source? Would you need to, in order to do that, do you need to have rules? Do you need to have people that are training other shoppers, or maybe you need to have a prep company come in? Maybe you need to, so what are the things that you need to do? So the one question that, as you're looking at your goal, you want to think about Imagine it's already done. This is the most important step. Imagine you already hit that goal. You already had that amount in inventory. You have, looks like you're on track for the sales, and you have to say, okay, so when you're looking at that, what are the things that I had to do to make it happen, and think backwards, right?
Right.
So so that's really what you want to do, is basically you're looking at your business and saying, what has to be true that is not true today? And we want to fill in those pieces. For a lot of you, it's scaling up. It's either usually going to be inventory, or it's going to be capital, or scaling up the sourcing, because those are the two things. If you can take care of, if you had inventory and if you had capital to buy the inventory, and you had the ability to scale up, then all the rest of your problems would be kind of taken care of. You would have more time to do reimbursements, more time to do this kind of research and that, all the things, because if you get more efficient, that opens sourcing. It should be, for most of you, 75% of your business hours during Q4. I would say, except for a very small group of you. And then what we want to do is make it so once you're hitting your goal consistently, your sourcing goal of how much you need to spend every week in order to hit that, then you can start to say, okay, well, how can I do it in less time? So now we know how much, so you can you're going to break it down. And I know in the boot camp, we walk you through how to do that. But basically, you want to know, how much do I need to spend every week at this minimum ROI in order to hit my goal, right?
Right.
So let's say I know I need to spend $1,500 in order to hit my goal. Then what I'm going to say is, well, right now I've been spending about $700. So what do I need to do in order to increase that? So I would probably have to, and you're going to brainstorm all the ideas. So I would have my sister come in and pack for me. I would, I'd get my kids to help me scan stuff. I would probably need to go spend at least 5 hours sourcing. And I want you to kind of flush out all the things. Like, if you do or die, like I had at the end of the week, I had to hit, what are all the things that you would do to make sure that you hit that goal? Kind of overshoot it. And, then you want to add in the pieces. So if you said well, I would need to spend at least 10 hours sourcing, I want you to add these little caveats. I'm going to spend 10 hours sourcing, and I'm spending at least $150 per hour, not breaking my buy rule. And then, so now I want you to, now you can start playing a game, because as you're sourcing, you're not just, I hope I find something.
Yeah.
It's just, now you're now you could be competitive with yourself, and you can say,
doing it on purpose.
Yeah. So I would love to hear listening to sellers talk and be like, I raised my hourly RA sourcing from $150 to $250 per hour.
Yeah, right. There you go. For sure. This is so huge. I hope that people at home are understanding how awesome this is. Give thumbs up if you're appreciating it. Say something in the comments. But real quick, I'll let you get back to it here. When would you say would be the best time for people to do this? Even if they don't do any of your stuff, or they only do the free Q4 warm-up or whatever, would you say get done with listening to this and sit down and start figuring some of this stuff out, or take some time tomorrow? That's kind of the most important thing you could do, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, so I would get your goals set up, and then once you have your goals set up, then you can put it all on your calendar, and then makes it become predictable. So if you don't, because one of the mistakes is, I actually had a client who said she's from Tennessee, and she knows that I make fun of her accent, so it's okay. But she's like, well, Robyn, if I had enough time to sit and write out all these goals, then I would never have any time to source. And I was like, I get that. But if you don't look, if you can't have a way to measure it, you need to stop and look at, we're a lot of times we're just running to run, but we're not giving ourselves the way to measure whether we're hitting our goals or not. So we're usually always running around feeling optimistic on the outside, but a little defeated on the inside, wondering if it's really going to work out. And it adds a lot of fear and uncertainty to your business.
Yeah, I could fully see that. And that ignorance of just like running around with like a chicken with your head cut off creates so much anxiety. Whereas when you make a plan and you figure something out and a way you're going to go and you're sticking to that plan, you feel powerful and you feel like I'm doing this on purpose. I'm living on purpose and doing the right things. Like, you know that you've made the decision, not just like having to react to all the different things and going, oh, what's happening? So that's huge.
It's about being intentional, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like one of the things I talked about in my Memphis class is I was like, leaders don't mosey. Have you ever seen like a real
Right.
big world leader, except for maybe one? you know, like just like like if you watch, a prime minister or a president or somebody like Mother Teresa, they walk with intentionality. Everything that they
Right.
do has an intent. They know what they need to accomplish,
Mm-hmm.
and they're clear on that. There's nothing that is better than you than them. There is no difference. We all have the same number of hours. We
Right.
all have the same, like we have different abilities, but they're all in different areas. You can make a bigger difference if you're intentional where you want to go, because it allows you to be intentional with your time. And it allows us to say, and it also allows us to make sure that we don't let our business run over our family and kill it.
Right.
Because it has to say, okay, well, I need to hit these goals. But, one of the things that we talked about in the time blocking thing that we did 2 weeks ago is your faith and your family time needs to come in there first. You put your church time in there. You put, if you're not a religious person, and maybe even if you are, maybe you put in your gym time and you're saying, that's important for me to maintain myself. We put the big things in life in first. And, so sometimes, like I'll tell my kids, I'm like, okay, so we're going to spend 3 hours at the park. But, if you see me look at my phone, we're going to start the time over.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because you have to set yourself up to, make sure that, you do spend time with your kids. And this is going to be somebody's last Christmas. It's going
Right.
to be somebody's last Thanksgiving, and you can't get that back. So, before you decide to ditch that family party or to not go to your friend's thing, there's times when we make sacrifices, and we should, for our business to grow, but we want them to be intentional. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not going to be intentional with the time that you're spending away from your family, I feel like you're doing your family a disservice.
Right. I agree 100%. And it's so easy to get sucked in, especially if you aren't intentional, if you have not figured out these are the things I'm going to do. This is what's the most important. That's huge. Like that is a huge thing. I hope that people just take, and run with what you just said, because, there's so many Q4s where I've done it where I'm just like, and then all of a sudden it's like, what, the third week in December, or, you're on Christmas Day and you're just like, what just happened? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's really huge. That's definitely, I hope that people can grab that and work with that, because the steps that you've given right now, you've really laid out a blueprint of how people can take back their Q4, right? So.
And, like in the boot camp, we actually, so I'm going to, one of the things that we talked about was, because one of the things that people ask me a lot is about, was about time, like how do you prioritize? There's just so many things that seem like they're kind of going for my attention all at once.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know what to give? And so we talked, in that we talked through like the priorities that we use and how we do it. But I also give them this printable that you can use with these Post-it notes. And these short Post-it notes are for an hour, and the square Post-it notes are for 3-hour blocks. And you can actually put the Post-it notes in here, or you can even just fill it in Excel. And so you see, we put in family time, dinner prep, taking the kids back and forth from school. You left some time in there for, things that happen. But where, how much are you going to spend? How much are you going to spend, like, on doing RA? I'm going to do $150 per hour. And so you can make sure all of those hours add up and you can actually hit your goal, because that allows you to say, maybe the goals that I set, maybe they're not reachable right now and I'm just torturing myself.
Right.
And I need to readjust. But, there's something that psychological happens when you take a goal away from, I want to lose weight, to, I need to lose 2 pounds this week because I just want to lose weight. I'm like, oh, well, I only have 2 Reese's peanut butter cups,
Right.
instead of the 4 that I want. But if I know I need to lose 2 pounds this week, then I'm like, okay, well, I need to close my rings on my Apple Watch every week. And so I need to burn at least this many calories, and I need to cut the amount of calories I eat. And it changes the way that you approach the problem.
Right.
So making sure that you have really clear numbers that are right here and not really, you have the long-term goals out there, but we want to make sure you've got some goals that are weekly that you either hit or you didn't and that are objective. It's going to really help you.
Yeah. And instead of just crossing your fingers, you're actually making a plan.
Because it's so easy to just work and work and work and work. And at the end of the year, I mean, I get at least 3 calls every year with somebody who's like, I worked so hard and I did my numbers at the end of the year. And I realized I only made like $900 out of my 900,000 in sales.
Right. Right.
No,
I've heard that type of stuff year after year where people are like, well, this FBA thing doesn't work. Like, I did all this work during Q4 and then I sold all this stuff. But then when I got to my bookkeeper, like, it's not, but it's like, that's because you didn't run your business like a business, right? So
it's easy to think just because they've got money coming in, those payouts have been coming, that I had one client that was, like, she's a smart woman. But she said when she first came to us, she's like, well, I said, well, how do you know if you're winning, right? Because we don't have any books right now. So how do you keep track? And she's like, as long as I can pay off my credit card and I have money coming in on my payout, then I know I'm winning. Well, that doesn't always work because, sometimes we have inventory that is getting stale. We're not keeping track of our expenses. So I know getting to know your numbers can be scary. It was incredibly scary for me. But once you know them, life in general is a lot less scary.
Sure. Now, the calendar that you had there, that was amazing. Is that something that you have in one of your groups or whatever, or is that just something of your own personal?
No, I made that and I made it available to print. So it prints on 11 by 17 paper and so if you're an Academy member, a Bootcamp member, or a Momentum member, it's in the Q4 replays.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Yeah. Because I saw that. I was like, oh, that's smart. So yeah, again, you guys, if you want to find any of the offerings that Robyn has, you can go to dollarmoves.com/RJ Q4 2017 or dollarmoves.com/Q4 2017 and scroll down to Robyn, and then you'll have this video as well as her previous year's videos. So tons of great information, and I sure appreciate all of it's just amazing. I'm always just impressed, and I guess I should just be used to it by now, with how much actionable information that you bring whenever you're on here. I mean, they could just take the information that you've given right now and do so much damage in a good way with it. You know what I mean?
I hope so. I want that to be the case,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so was there anything else to add with what you had? I mean, it sounds like you kind of went through all of the steps all the way from A to Z, huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, once you really can start doing that on a weekly basis, and then start refining, that process, it's going to allow you to be more profitable. I would say, that the most important thing that you can do, like, for the most part, you ignore most of the admin stuff. You need to check your, other than, things you have to check your feedback every day, or, customer messages every day. But other than that, don't worry about reimbursements unless you need the capital or something along those lines. But don't get too caught up in the minutia of things. But I would say that you do need to know for sure your fixed expenses, your monthly fixed expenses, because you need to know your break-even point, and you need to know what are your weekly goals, right? So, and we want to make sure your weekly goals are focused. There's a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, and in that he talks about lead versus lag actions. And most of us set our goals on these lag actions. So, I'm going to have 30,000 in sales. I'm going to I'm going to spend $15,000. I'm going to, do all these things. But if you think about it, there's a huge gap between when we do the actions in our business and when those things show up on the scoreboard. Because you could work really hard this week, but those sales aren't going to show up for 3 weeks. So you want to make sure that all of the things that you're doing for your weekly goals are all lead actions. They're all specific actions that you would take that would make that lag action predictable. So, you take these little steps and then you're going to translate those into the larger, and then you're going to keep an eye to help us make sure that over time they are getting you those lag results. But if you try to set your goals on, well, I want to have this week, I want my sales to be $20,000. Your action, you're always going to be frustrated because the actions, there's such a big gap between the actions that you take and the scoreboard that you're going to feel like you're not getting anywhere.
Right, right. And you're kind of always behind the ball in that way too, huh?
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, man, that is the info. Yeah, I appreciate all the info that you've given. Is there any other anything else? I think we're coming to the end of an hour. I guess we've gone a little over an hour here. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or that you feel like maybe you've missed, or anything like that before we head out? Or
I know I'll remember them all right after we disconnect.
that's the way it works
As soon as
every
we go
time.
I'm like, oh, I forgot the key components.
You go stop, and then you're like,
Oh, I skipped that whole chapter.
Now, do you have, I know that there's a lot of different people that offer Q4 products and stuff like that. Do you have a cutoff point on this? Do you, at what point do you do that, or is
We'll
it
probably close
open?
it down as we get close to Black Friday, just because at some point, probably. So I would say probably, I guess we'll probably the week before Black Friday, because we'll be announcing as soon as we'll close that down as we announce our new Black Friday things, probably.
Okay, very good. Yeah, because I know a lot of people, they tend to start doing that, and every year, people come to me and they're like, but Rob, I wanted to do that thing, and it's like, you really can't wait, because these things, and the timing too, I mean, there's only so much time. Like, you need to be getting the information, getting in there and rocking and rolling, especially getting into November now.
It's time to start ramping up. I mean, this is when you get serious as a heart attack. I mean, and for all you moms out there, I know that mommy guilt is high this time of year. You need to tell the teacher, look, I will do lunch bunch all year, except for these 2 months. I will not do lunch bunch these 2 months. So you need to tell them, even if you made a commitment, you might need to say, like, look, what can I do to trade with somebody for the next couple of months? Because I need to focus on my business so that I can help you the rest of the year for silent auction, because I'll still be able to be working from home.
Right.
So don't be afraid to ask your friends, anybody that you've helped move or you've picked up from the airport. I think that it's time for a pizza prep party where they come and they get pizza and beer after they prep. Don't give them beer before they prep.
Right. Nothing is done that way. If it does, it's not the right way, right?
Yeah. But make sure that you're giving yourself enough time and enough support. Make sure your family's on board. And, if they can see how all of these pieces go together and they see that there's a plan, if you have an unsupportive spouse or an unsupportive child, this isn't going to move them all the way over. But if they can see that you've actually put together a plan and you have measures to tell whether you're winning or losing, they're going to be more supportive, because not always, but many spouses that are unsupportive, it's really out of a fear, some sort of fear. They're afraid that maybe you won't need them anymore, or more likely, they're afraid that what if it doesn't work and you're disappointed, and they want to protect you. And so if you can see that this is a plan that you have, and this isn't just a whim, this is something that you've thought about, you've done the numbers, you're treating it like a business. When you start changing the way that you treat the business, they'll change the way that they treat the business.
Yeah, that's very good. And doing it the way you're talking about, I mean, it is having that information right there. Like it's all laid out, and it's smart. Someone can look at that instead of just going, oh gosh, we're doing Q4 again, and you're going to go crazy for the next 2 months. It's like, look, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And I've got chunks of time for you in here as well, and all this stuff, and help me out, and let's make this rock and roll. So I think that is so huge. Just doing it this way can make Q4 so much more manageable and better. And, like you said, make it a big priority, because the next 2 months are really, seen as the most important months that you can do the best to your business compared to all the rest of the year. So
you can, if you really, really hustle and you work really, really hard, then it is possible for you to have the same amount of sales that you've had year to date in the next 2 months. So that doesn't, you need to watch your expenses. You need to make sure you're still profitable. And you need to make sure you don't kill yourself.
Right.
But this is the chance for you to really, scale up very quickly. And then the habits and disciplines that you build through that goal setting, that will help you have consistent growth all year past Q4 too.
Right, absolutely. And then I don't know that we have any questions or anything in the comments, but again, I just want to let you know Robyn has put all of her courses and everything together in one easy spot. You can go to dollarmoves.com/RJQ4 2017. Again, dollarmoves.com/RJQ4 2017. You can also go to dollarmoves.com/Q4 2017 and find this video and all the links for Robyn's information. It looks like there are a couple of questions there. Did you want to answer questions or?
Yeah, so with Care Bear, why don't you reach out to me and we'll work something out. And then on Benjamin, he wanted to know if I recommend any products that we should be buying now for Q4. You should be buying things now that are going to, biggest mistake I see people who are new make is they try to buy the hot Christmas toy because they want to get that huge margin of the Tickle Me Elmo. Look, everybody's gonna be on Tickle Me Elmo, whatever the Tickle Me Elmo is this year. Don't go where everybody else is. If you have some success, keep doubling down on that success, and then try to add a little bit on to that. So a lot of different categories increase sales during Q4 beyond toys. If you think about it, people buy apparel, people buy sports stuff, they buy a lot of housewares because this is somebody's first Christmas as a couple, and so they need to buy the gravy separator for their first Thanksgiving or all that stuff. So there's a lot of categories. A lot of people buy certain foods, convenience foods and things, like if you're Hispanic, then tamales at Christmas is a thing. Even if you move to North Dakota where maybe they don't have the things for tamales, you're going to want tamales. So, and there's, every ethnicity has some special holiday food around it. So there's a lot of different categories. Focus on things that are already selling at a profit and focus on that. Don't get greedy and focus on, things. And then as you get closer, you might want to start watching if there's things that we're going to start to see in the next couple of weeks, what things are the hot scarcity things. You might want to think about holding those back and selling them on Facebook Marketplace, because then you don't have to pay that third Amazon fee. So even if you get a lower amount, especially if you're just getting started, it'll allow you to turn your capital faster because you don't have to wait for it to arrive at Amazon. So
huge tip, everyone. I mean, that right there is, that's super good.
Yeah, it's going to make a big difference. And if you guys have any questions on any of the things, then you can email me at robyn@bestfromthenest.com. And then sometimes I get a little bit behind on email. So if I ever don't answer a PM or an email, we were just talking about this before the show, please just keep emailing me. It's not that I'm ignoring you. It's not that I don't want to answer to you. It's just sometimes I get a little overwhelmed, and I just had to start working on cleaning out my email box because I was gone. I was out of town for a long time. And so I just got back.
It's buried, and we have to if you get back up to the top of the pile, it's not because we're mean people. It's sometimes you just get buried. So yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure, and the time just flies by whenever we're on here talking, and you bring so much great information. So I just want to thank you so much. And you guys, I know for all of you who've been watching now, you see the great information that Robyn has. She cares about her students, and she's there, she's putting in a plan, just the free stuff she gave here alone. It's teaching you how to have a plan to crush it on Q4. So please give thumbs up. If you're here now, say something in the comment section. If you're watching afterwards, let her know down below. I'm sure she'll come back and take a look. But thank you so much, Robyn. I sure appreciate you coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And if I just really love getting to be a part of people's stories. So, if you're going to take us up on the programs or not, either way, I just wish you guys, may the odds ever be in your favor, right? And just, remember that, there's a lot of pressure in Q4. Give yourself a little grace. And I've got really great news, and that's Christmas will be here again next year.
Right.
So, this isn't do or die. This could be the warm-up phase for you, and people have extraordinary growth the entire year. So don't feel like you have to kill yourself in order to be successful in this business. But there is so much opportunity, and I just see more opportunity opening up on the horizon. So make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that are going to encourage you to run and run in a healthy way.
Right. That is awesome. Thank you so much. I hope that people make it to the end and hear that stuff because, I think that most people are killing themselves on Q4. So that's super cool that obviously you care. So thank you again.
Thanks.
And yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time and coming on here too to share with my viewers. It's just so cool. And then also, I'd like to thank you all for showing up and watching the show and giving the thumbs up and commenting and everything. Super cool. I really appreciate you. And I know that an hour is a long time, but man, what great information, right? I want to remind you one more time that Robyn has the free Q4 warm-up course, the Q4 bootcamp, and the Q4 momentum coaching, all the stuff she talked about earlier and talked all about, but you can find more information at dollarmoves.com/RJ Q4 2017, or you can go to dollarmoves.com/Q4 2017. Just scroll down to Robyn's section there, and you can find all the links, and you can find this video and the other two that she did from last year. So even if you're not in a place where you can purchase something, you've seen the great information that she gives. You can find more of it over there. And then I also wanted to remind you, while you're over, if you are over at dollarmoves.com/Q4 2017, make sure and sign up for the email newsletter so I can contact you if I come across anything that I think can benefit you or that I think can find value for you. And then while you're here, if you aren't a subscriber, I should have said this way at the beginning, but if you aren't a subscriber to the channel and you enjoyed the information that we have here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel to make sure that I can let you know whenever we have any new shows or videos that come out. So again, thanks everyone for showing up. Thank you, Robyn, again so much. It's always a pleasure. And we wish you guys a Merry Christmas, right? Have a killer Q4.
Thanks,
Take care.
guys.